Hello, and welcome to the Music Teacher Coffee Talk podcast. I'm Tanya.
And I'm Carrie. We are both elementary music teachers who love to talk shop, preferably over a steaming cup of coffee. This is episode number 168. Today we are taking a peek at our week and looking at our fourth grade lesson plans. We'll also talk about our highs and lows from the teaching week, discuss some ideas in our Know Better, Do Better segment, share a work smarter, not harder teacher tip.
And in our CODA section, we'll give some specific recommendations of our favorite things we are enjoying in or out of the music room. So grab your beverage of choice and let's get started.
It is time to share some highs and lows from our teaching week. Now, at the time of recording, we're just coming off Thanksgiving break, so we were both having a bit of a hard time remembering what happened before the Thanksgiving break holiday. But Tanya, what do you remember?
I remember I taught once, twice, a
Yay.
few times. Yeah, you were exactly right. I had to a lot of things have happened during this Thanksgiving week that have kind of taken me out of thinking about the classroom. But as I was thinking about before times when we were teaching, and we will be teaching again in a couple of days, I was remembering that I have been very delighted by my second graders and how well in tune they are singing and how well they are doing overwhelmingly melodically. Um, in our district this year, overall in general music, we are trying to get a little deeper melodically. We've got some professional learning communities going on where we're focused on melodic understanding, reading, hearing, singing, notating, you know. And so I also took it as a personal charge that, like, let's really make sure that students, Tanya, are strong melodically because, as we know, as it's been said many times, rhythm is so much easier to teach than any melodic concepts, because for kids to be strong melodically, they need to be able to sing in tune, they need to be able to inner hear, right? So I've been working a little bit more and taking longer on my melodic concepts. And I'm seeing that in my second graders and my first graders. I just have to say that it is paying off, and it's tricky because this is a year where I'm going to see everybody 20 less times, like you have been doing. So I was really pleased when I'm thinking back to most of my second grade, not all, but most of my second grade um, are singing well in tune, are reading developmentally what they should be able to read melodically. And you and I have talked off mic about how second grade, between first grade and second grade, like it's kind of developmentally magic that kids who maybe have missed the boat melodically in kindergarten and first grade, that it just a switch flips, and that they are really able to do things melodically they weren't able to do earlier.
Yeah, totally. Yay.
Yay. So,
That's awesome.
yes, I'm happy for that. Thankful for that.
Good.
Yeah. And you,
Way to pull in
Carrie?
the thankfulness. Yeah, so I'll go a little low. It's just a silly little thing, but have you ever done this, Tanya, where you plan something and you get really excited about it and you're like, this is going to be amazing. And it's not that it doesn't go well, it's just kind of like the kids are like underwhelmed. So let me tell
That
you
is
what
my life. Yes.
no, let me tell you what I'm talking about. So, you all probably heard by now, I took my ORF level one this last summer, and my level one like basic pedagogy teacher, it was Karen Petty, who's a Colorado teacher, just recently retired, and she did this magical thing with us with hand drums, with which is how she introduces hand drums to kindergartners for the very first time. And I'm not going to explain it because it's her thing and it's not about the specific thing. It's just about the fact that it was like, ooh, I've never introduced hand drums this way. And it is very like playful and magical and pretend and, all this fun stuff that I really like to do. Well, when we did it as adults in class, I thought, this is lovely. I don't know, is it going to work with kids? And really, it requires a little bit of setup before the kids walk in the door, which I don't normally have. I have a little bit of transition time, but not enough to feel like I could do that. Well, all that to say, the week before Thanksgiving, my second graders were on a field trip, which is the class I have right before kindergarten. And so I thought, well, with this one kindergarten class, what a perfect way to try this and see how it goes. So I got everything all set up and got everything just right and took a little video of it. I think I sent it to you, Tanya. And I was like, this is adorable. And the kids walked in, and all I heard was this one kid going, "What the? What the?" Which is like my least favorite thing for kids to yell. And I don't blame the child. I blame like Disney movies and movies that insert that phrase in, which is really inappropriate in my opinion, but that's a whole tangent. Anyways, the point is like, we're trying to tiptoe into this magical situation of it got all set up and this kid's just yelling, which I guess is totally typical. But then the rest of the kids were kind of like, all right. Like, we're just a little underwhelmed. So, and I'm not blaming the activity at all. I'm blaming myself because it was kind of a last minute thing like, oh, I could do this today because these kids are on a field trip. So I kind of like, I didn't go back and look at my notes. I didn't go back and think properly. What were the steps she took? Like the very specific pedagogical steps because they were there. There was a whole sequence of activities. And I know I've only remembered like two of them. So I did it and it was okay. No drums were broken, no child got hurt, but it wasn't as magical as I had hoped, and that's always like wah wah, it's a letdown when you do, and it's just a reminder when you do these things in a training and in a workshop, and it's so magical. Trying to recreate it in your classroom is not as always as easy as you think it's going to be, especially if you don't like really internalize all of those specific pedagogical steps along the way. So that's my little low. I might try it again later once I look at my notes and be like, what was it that she actually did? The activity is super sweet and I love it. I just got to look at it a little better.
It's time for our main theme, and today we are focusing on fourth grade and what's been going on in fourth grade. We are almost at that halfway through the year mark, so I'm sure you are right on track with your long range plans, Carrie, that fourth graders are exactly where they should be, right?
Not bad, I will say. Not bad. Better than in years past. Yes, with most things, but not all things, and I'll talk about it. So here's where I am and what I'm working on. So first of all, they were quote unquote behind still from last year, melodically specifically. We got through everything I wanted to rhythmically, which is good. So melodically, what we were doing so far this year was a lot of practice of low so, which, excuse me, back it up. Low la. So we did learn low la in the end of third grade, but it was real brief and I didn't feel like it was super concrete in their head. So we have been doing a lot of practicing of low la, with the rest of the pentatonic scale, not high do, so just do re mi so la and then low la. And then of course weaving in things that I'm going to use to teach low so, because the thing is once they know low la, teaching low so is really quick and easy in my opinion. So, one of my classic favorites for practicing Lola is Big Fat Biscuit, the weirdest song with the funnest game. So, the version that I know is from the American Methodology book, and I'll just sing it real quick. It's Big Fat Biscuit, chew-baloo, just from the oven, chew-baloo, oh, jump over yonder, chew-baloo. And it's just a little jumping game. You can do it any way that makes sense for your room. So in my room, I have carpet, so I lay down a Velcro line, and I have 3 students lined up next to each other, and on each chew-baloo, one student jumps, and it has to be a 2-foot flat-footed jump, and basically whoever jumps the farthest is the winner, and you can make up your own rules to make it make sense, whether you measure from their toe or the back of their heel or whatever you want to do. That part's not important. And then I just play it like elimination style, so the kid who won stays standing in our little circle, and they're like jumping to the middle of the circle, so it's like a half semicircle. If you have space, you could have them line up in teams behind the line, but my room's not big enough to do that. So all that to say, they love the game so much that it gets them to sing this song over and over and over, and that choo-baloo is just perfect for do-la-do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I was using Big Fat Biscuit too recently to practice low la. well, no, actually, I'm sorry, to prep Lola with third grade.
Hmm.
And I decided to take out the low so.
Yeah. So,
And I was wondering if you had done the same thing. So I have them singing, big fat biscuit chubaloo, just from the oven chubaloo, jump over yonder chubaloo, and just forgetting the boy. And then I
mhm.
thought, and I've not tried this yet, but I'm thinking that maybe when we get to Loso, maybe I'll stick it back in, see what happens.
Yes, so I totally do that. Oftentimes I'll sing it and I do change it. The original source, American Mythology, has boy jump over yonder. We just change it to oh jump over yonder. So it's not gendered, first of all. Here's the thing though, yeah, when I teach them Lola, I take it out. And so it's kind of like it's there and it's not there. It's kind of like it's there when we play the game, but it's not there when we read it, if that makes sense.
Plus, it's an inner anacrusis,
It's
which can
yeah, it's yeah, which messes up the rhythm. And here's the other great thing about Big Fat Biscuit is that rhythmically then it's great for so many things. So I'm going to talk about Tita T in a minute, but I do use it for that. And then the Tom T rhythm, which is the dotted quarter eighth note rhythm. So it just comes back for all the things. But just yeah, I hear you on that oh or that boy or that inner anacrusis. Just yeah, leave it out. I mean, this is like oral tradition stuff. Like it's not that important to me. And then thank you for that segue. It also makes it so we can play it on the recorder. So Big Fat Biscuit is one of our recorder pieces that we do. And first, I mean, I'm just teaching them how to play that. And I know I'm not in G do right now. I'm not even close. But you know, the G, E, G, or whatever those pitches are, the do, la, do, but playing G, low E, back to G again. So that's just one of my songs to have them call and response, which just brings up this great point about recorder playing is so many of us for a long time taught recorder, kind of the way like beginning band methods teach recorder. Like, I will read this song, I will play this song, I will practice this song, and now I will test this song for a belt or whatever. Where recorder can be much more fun and interactive. The kids don't even have to play the whole song to enjoy a song, right? So we start off with me playing the Big Fat Biscuit, and then they play the Choo Baloo, and we're just echoing back and forth, which then leads to great question and answer improvisation. So now you can play Choo Baloo on any of the four pitches we know. We know G, A, B, and we know low E. So that just leads to some great moments of improvisation, whether you're doing it on Orff instruments, recorder, whatever. So just a friendly reminder that when you're teaching kids a song on the recorder, they could be just playing a little call and response. They could be doing a little ostinati. Like they don't have to always play a whole song. You can take a song that you've been singing and playing and enjoying in its full beauty. Big Fat Biscuit not being necessarily beautiful, but you know what I mean. And you can just have them play little snippets on the recorder, which is great. Will we then eventually read full songs with Lola? Of course. So like the next song we're gonna do is Who Has Seen the Wind with the Lola in it, right? Really beautiful piece on the recorder. So that's where we're going melodically and then preparing low so. And I have some double duty things to talk about. But really, the main event right before Thanksgiving was I presented Tita T. And, that's one of those you mentioned like staying in track with my yearly plans. Tita T or cinco pa, whatever you want to call it, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note. That can be a really tricky concept to prepare and present. And oftentimes I prepare it for way too long because I really want kids like really getting it. And yes, of course, I do want them to get it. But for some kids, once you just show them the notation and you teach them the syllable of ti ta ti, if they understand ti is half of ta and they're learning how to line it up in all these different ways, like it's kind of like what you're talking about with the in tune singing thing. Like it'll come in the practice stage. So this year I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. Are they ready for me to present ti ta ti? I don't know if we're quite there. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And the kids who are struggling with it, catch them up in the practice stage. And I feel like, especially with this concept, that does happen kind of naturally. So some of my Tita T songs, I won't mention all of them, but a classic is Alabama Gal, everyone's favorite. Come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry. hurry, come through in a hurry, Alabama gal. Just real simple. I love the New England Dancing Masters recording for us doing the folk dance, which is the long way set, where during the first verse, two people they sashay down and sashay back, and then in the second verse, I don't know how they do a right hand turn and then a left hand turn, and then during the third and fourth verses, I'll show you how and Ain't I Rock Candy. They're peeling the banana, they're going through the set, and boom. So it was a really great folk dance for them to get the wiggles out before Thanksgiving break. We had some snow days and some bad weather mixed in there, so it's an absolute favorite. They love it. So yeah, we did that, and that's going to be another double duty song then because it also has the low so in it. Do, 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 la, so. So that becomes one of my low so prep songs too. Um, so another song that we've been doing for the Tita T is this little song that I learned from our level 1 teacher, Joe Kirk. It's Under the Spreading Chestnut Tree, and I don't know, like, it's hard to go back to the original source of this song, so I just use the version that I learned from Joe, and I'll put the notation in the show notes. I won't sing the whole thing, but it just starts out with that dee da dee da 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 rhythm. And the little activity that I do it's like an inner hearing game where you take away words, and for each word you do a little motion. Maybe I'll take a little video of my kids singing this song. Melodically, this song is hard because it does go all the way to high do, and it also has a high T. So like in tune singing of this isn't always as great as I'd like it to be, but it is good for that T ta T rhythm, and we often just add a little ostinati to that. Yes, Tanya.
You're mentioning all these songs that I was going to mention as well, but
Oh,
no, it's awesome. So I'll just be able to say, and you've already discussed this, but I think I might have said this on the podcast before. I wanted to mention that Under the Spreading Chestnut Tree, which I've tried to research as well and not come up with much. However, if you read George Orwell's 1984, the lyrics are mentioned quite a bit
yeah. Yeah,
in
you
that
mentioned that
song.
before. That's funny.
Yeah,
Um,
which is fascinating. And we don't need to hear the lyrics of that one because it's a little different and a little
yeah,
menacing. But I don't have a problem with doing Under the Spreading Chestnut Tree just because it's in 1984 and everything. I mean,
right.
it's not going to come up. Plus, it's not problematic in any sense beyond being a little gruesome. That's all.
Yeah,
Anyway, but I love that song as well. And you're absolutely right that melodically, when I first started doing that song, I started doing it with little ones because it's fun to do all the motions and
yeah,
things. But melodically, it does not sit well for the younger kids, and it does sit
right.
well easier for the older.
Yeah, but it's still hard for them. It's still
Yeah.
challenging for them. And that's often a song I'll bring back later for the high T if I want to, but sometimes we just do it for this. Um, what was I going to say? Oh, there is in my small amount of research, there's like a big band version of it. The melody is obviously going to be slightly different, but I can link to it in the show notes. It's just a fun thing to listen to with the kids once they know the original, not the original, but the version that I teach them. And I'm like, oh, let's listen to this and see if you recognize it. So that's the only like older version of this song that I've really heard is this like big band version. I can't remember if it's Glenn Miller or what it is, but I'll put it in the show notes.
Cool.
So in addition to obviously just doing a lot of things with reading and clapping ostinato, doing a lot of like beat versus rhythm stuff with Tita T, because that's the whole point of it, right? Some of the things that I like to do as practice activities, so I have this in my lesson plan for Monday when we come back from winter break, is, and I have a couple versions of these, but rhythm beach balls. If you stock up on beach balls when they're, at 99 cents at the summertime, you basically on each little section of the beach ball write different rhythm. So I've got, tita, tita, ta, and then tita, 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 and then ta, tita, tita, because you don't want to always have the tita in the first beats, although it lands there naturally. Anyways, the point is each little section of the ball has a rhythm, and this becomes just a great little formative assessment. So that's why I'm going to do it when we come back from break to see if it's stuck in their head. And it's really telling. So if you just take turns tossing the ball, like I toss the ball to a kid, they read a rhythm, they toss the ball to a kid, and they sit down when they've had their turn. It's a really great little formative assessment because if they're reading it like this, T, ta, T, then they're not feeling it, and then I need to back up the train, and we need to do a lot more echo work and a lot more like group reading together till they start to really feel that. But that's just a great little thing. So I have rhythm beach balls for all different rhythm concepts, but really like it for Tita because it really lets me know how the kids are doing with that. Another practice activity are these things that I found in my classroom. They're called note knacks, and I will link to them in the show notes. So if you imagine like Scrabble tiles, they are in a bag, and there are a Scrabble tile that equals 4 beats of length, 3 beats of length, and 2 beats of length. So you can do different meters. And then in each bag are little tiles, and it's all like wooden, so it's very like tactile and kind of like Montessori-ish, you know. So you've got your whole note that takes up the 4 beats, and on the flip side of it, there's a whole rest. And then you've got your 2 half notes, and they fit, and then you've got your quarter notes, and they fit. And then what I like about it specifically for this is the eighth notes come as single eighth notes rather than 2 eighth notes on one tile. So I don't use these with younger students. I save these note knacks for older kids once they know that T and T are split apart, which I do in the prep stage of T-T. So all that to say, I don't have a set for every single kid. I think I've got like 10 sets in my class. So we'll do this with either partners or groups of 3, where I'll clap a rhythm, they have to write it, and I tell them it's a competition, and I'm like, you get a point, you get a point, but like it really doesn't matter whatsoever. But basically they're just writing the rhythms that I'm speaking. But what I love about it is because the T's are split, they can manipulate that T-ta T, and it's just like a real concrete thing.
Were these homemade? Did someone make these and leave them? What
They're
happened?
in a store. You can buy them. They're not
Oh,
cheap. They're not cheap. So
where
thank you.
can we get these?
I have a link to it in the show notes.
I'm sorry. I know you probably said that. I'm
No,
just
that's
like,
okay. If you just Google Note Knacks, Knacks spelled Knacks, a website comes up where you can buy these. And then you can even buy like 16th notes, little tiny individual 16th note tiles. They're great. And then they're great for stations too. So once, the kids have done it whole group, you could do it as.
wow. I'm looking at the full set at West Music.
Oh, I know. They're not cheap. Oh, you can get them at West? Okay, cool. No, they're not cheap at all. So you definitely wouldn't
But
want.
cool.
Yeah, they are cool. So just a couple of sets where they can work in groups. Even if you had 4, I've done this with 4 kids in a group before. I mean, you could have them all gather and take turns and manipulate it together. And then they have to create a rhythm that has Tita, T in it. And that becomes an ostinato to the next song we sing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they are really cool. I have totally seen so many different people have created paper versions of this, basically, where you just cut them out and, like a TPT product. If I find a good one, I'll link to it in the show notes. But I mean, you could take the time to do it with paper too. The idea is, mathematically, the sizes of everything is going to fit on the little beat chart or whatever. But, I do so many things with flashcards and beat charts and all that. It's kind of fun to have something that's really tactile to
Yes,
play with
awesome.
for the older kids. So that's a great practice activity, specifically for Tita, but could be for other things too. And then I'll just give one shout out to another practice activity, which is King of the Mountain. This is usually the first time that I introduce King of the Mountain is I wait until they're older just because I don't know. I feel like I have enough for younger kids. It's always the older kids I'm trying to save fun things for them. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to introduce King of the Mountain. I'm sure we've talked about King of the Mountain before, and I'll put like detailed directions in the show notes, but basically the students are sitting in a circle. They each have a rhythm card in front of them, and Tanya, I use your handy dandy tent cards, which are cards that it's like cardstock and they're folded in half, so the same rhythm is in the front and on the back. So it's nice that it's not flat, so students have to read upside down. It's up like that. And so the idea is one card is the king card, and you can decide how you want to do that, whatever way you want to do it. But the king says their card, and then someone else's. They say their cards and then someone else's. And if you make a mistake, you move away from your card. All the people below you, we always move clockwise just to always be consistent. All the people below you move up a spot, and you then go to the bottom of the mountain, which would then be directly to the left, I had to think a minute, the left of the king's card becomes the bottom of the mountain. So no one's ever eliminated, but you do go to the bottom and then have to work your way back up again. The first time I teach this game, it takes a while. It takes like a good 15 minutes to really get into the game, explain the rules, have them playing successfully. But then once they know it, it's just a fun game to pull out when you have extra time or choice days. They love it. Sub days is actually a really good thing to do on a sub day. So, I'll link to it in the show notes, the directions, and I'll link to Tanya's handy dandy tent cards as well. But this is usually the first time that I introduce King of the Mountain is with Tita T. So
Love it. Love it. Yes.
that's where we're at with Tita T and moving in from Lola into Loso.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're busy. We are
We're
busy in fourth grade.
busy. Yes. So, when we return to school, I'm going to talk a little bit about what my fourth graders have been doing, but what we will be doing because, like you, I'm going to be prepping, not practicing. So, not like you, Tita T, which I often say is the most challenging rhythm in all of elementary school, like hands down, because they have to view it and feel it as a unit, and that takes some time because we've been used to seeing, I mean, we're used to seeing a pair of eighth notes as a pair of eighth notes. We're used to seeing a quarter note, but this is the first time where we're really asking them to chunk that t ta t, and we've got to spend some time prepping split t's, seeing those t's without um, the beam and with their little flags. And I'll get to that. I'm just going to mention that fourth grade has been working on Sound Trap. It was their first Sound Trap composition. So Sound Trap, if you don't know, is an awesome music arranging, very similar to GarageBand, kind of web-based tool. And our district provides all the students, all the teachers to have all of Sound Trap, right? So we have a district-wide license for Sound Trap. So it's really kids are arranging things. They are not. You can, of course, in Sound Trap, record your own thing and have that in there. And I have done projects where they do that. But for this first project, I just want them exploring in Sound Trap. So, and I know I got this from you, Carrie. I just have them do a very basic do drums or beats, bass, guitar, and piano. In fact, if they don't do both keyboards, piano, and guitar, I'm fine with that. I want them to have drums and bass, and then either guitar or piano. But most of them put both in,
Yeah.
and it's just really good for them because I understand that when I am handed a new tool or a new instrument, I don't want someone to put a lot of expectations of like, you're going to do all these things. I want to explore. And this is a really great way for them to explore all of the different riffs that they hear the bass playing. So we go through a process of I give them a few minutes to pick favorites from each category because it's totally overwhelming when you see all of the bass sounds. You could spend a whole day just listening to bass sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So pick favorites and then drag them in there. And then let's work on doing an intro where they don't have all the instruments start at once, but they might have one. And then we talk about how to fade instruments in. And then we do like an outro or ending where they fade out. And it's just them getting their hands on this tool for the first time and exploring all the different choices that they have. And it's enough for the very first time.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah. So later in the year, the fourth graders will be composing some music specifically for the introduction to our school-wide student news program,
Mm.
because that starts with a little, music thing. So that'll be good that later on, now that they've had an exploration of their choice, because I did not say this music is for the purpose of, I just said do something that you like,
Mm-hmm.
write something that you want to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, then we'll add the extra when we do this assignment where they are composing the intro for the news program. They got to think about, okay, well, what's something that would like capture someone's attention, let them know that the news is coming. It's not going to be a party anthem, and it's not going to be a like solitary melancholy something or other. It's specifically for this purpose. So anyway, we've been doing Soundtrap, and that was the perfect thing to do right before Thanksgiving. I'm in the middle of a rotation, so when we go back, I have a few groups that are going to be finishing up their projects because they just started, and and that makes me antsy, as we've talked before, because I'm like thinking about all the other things I want to be doing. Yes, Carrie.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you're doing these sound trap lessons, is that pretty much what they're doing the entire lesson, or do you have them doing a little singing, a little dancing, like bookend it to,
Yeah.
because your lessons are 45 minutes, right? So
Yes, they are.
about how
So
much
no.
time are you spending on the sound trap
All
specific?
right. So when we started it, it was like the last 15 minutes of
Hmm,
class where I
okay.
introduced it. Um, and before that, yeah, we were doing some practice of things. We were doing a musician of the day. Um, yeah, so we're doing normal, typical what I would do in a fourth grade lesson stuff. And the last 15 minutes were, hey, look at here's Soundtrap, and here are the things you can do. And they had like 8 minutes to start exploring it. And for this second lesson, I am giving them not all, I would say 35 minutes of
To
the
actually do
45
the thing.
to actually do it.
Yeah.
And I really wanted it to be shorter, but I have so many kids that don't come away with it finished.
Yeah, they need that much time.
They
Like you
do
said,
need that time.
there's so it's overwhelming the choices, and they just have to learn where to click things and all that. So
Yeah. So some kids finish. And I also during the second lesson where they're finishing it up towards the three-fourths of the way through that second lesson, I say, hey, everybody, let's stop for a minute. Did you know you can collaborate? Look, here's how you can collaborate with others. And so that way, the kids who have finished now are excited about doing a project with somebody else.
yeah,
Also, I make sure I have time in there where, all right, we're gonna wrap it up, or not really wrap it up, but like find a stopping place. And now it's time. You have like 5 minutes to share with somebody else in the room.
hmm,
And I want them to have that time to like hear each other's thing.
yeah, they love that.
Yeah. And then with the collaboration, then I have kids who are excited about collaborating, the kids who are done, who are really just like they've made their choices, they're really ahead of the game. Then they can start collaborating with others and then take it off of the music room expectations. And this is something I was hoping, and I'm sure I'll hear about it, that over Thanksgiving break, maybe some kids who had extra free time on their hands got into using Soundtrap with friends
Yeah,
and like doing other things, because I really want them to see this as a tool that they can use not just in the music room, of course, but anywhere else. Yeah,
awesome.
so we'll be finishing up that Soundtrap thing with the rest of my classes. And then I'm going to be heavy duty getting into the T syncopated rhythm prep. And along with that, like we mentioned before, those split T's are a thing that we
Hmm.
need to review. So I take some time. I have some silly activities that I do with split T. And one of them is that we are moving something we haven't done since like kindergarten and first grade. We are moving our feet to the sound of the drum.
Hmm.
And we are first moving as taws with our arms by our side, and they are just speaking and moving and saying ta, 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 ta. Yes, it's fourth grade, and they will do this for me. It's fine. And then we can be eighth notes, and we are moving as T, 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 T. And for that, I say, okay, you have an option. When you hear the rhythm change to T, 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 you can either fly your own flag and just be a single T, or you can find a buddy and put your arm and make a beam. And I have a little talk beforehand about how, maybe you and your bestie, you do soccer together and you're together and you are beamed. But maybe you're on student council and your friend is going to basketball practice or something else. Um, and then they have you and your bestie, you're not together anymore, and you fly your single T. flags. So we go around the room. Yes, what was your question?
Can I just I tell them a cheesy little story for the first time where I have two students stand in the front of the room and I talk about how they're besties and they've got their arms
Yes.
up, and then they go to Elitch Gardens, which is like our local amusement park, and like this friend wanted to go ride the Mind Eraser and this friend wanted to ride Tower of Doom, so they split apart. And their arms just kind of hung to the side because they missed their friend, but because they had been like this for so long, their arms were stuck and so they didn't drop down. So I'm like, what's their name? You know, when they're together, they're Titi. When they're apart, who are they? And inevitably, all the kids go Ta. And I was like, but wait, no. Just because you split away from your friend, does that mean your name is changed? And they're like, oh. So I'm like, they're together, they are Titi. Apart, they are Titi. Together, they are Titi. Apart, they. So that's how I introduce. So yeah, that goes really well with then having them travel with a friend or alone. Yeah, it's just a fun
Yes.
little way. So then we often call them friendly TTs and unfriendly TTs.
Oh, wow.
That becomes our little lingo for split tees. You know, I mean, I
That's
do
very
teach
cute.
them beamed and flagged too, but we just by default are like, they're like, whenever we're doing dictation, they're like, can we write friendly TTs or unfriendly
Oh,
TTs? I'm
that's
like, I don't care.
nice.
Either one. So, yeah,
That
sorry.
maybe I should go with that. I just say sometimes you just got to fly your flag
I
for
like
just your
that.
own stuff, like your single flag, because these are flags and beams, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that flyer flag. That's
um,
super cute.
fly your freak flag. I don't say freak,
No, take
um,
that part out.
only in my head. Yes. So we do that, and hopefully somebody asks the questions. Usually a kid does, like, why do you need to see why do we have them with flags or with beams? I'm like, well, let's look at this. And I bring out my Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. So I have a Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy rhythm reading thing. It's available on Teachers Pay Teachers. It's very simple. It's not a video where kids are reading along. It is really just like, here is the rhythm with Taz and TTs and rests of Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. And I have two versions in there. I have one with beamed tees and I have one with single tees. And I say, well, okay, let's read this one with the beam tees. And they're very easily able to sing and read ti ti ta 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 ti ti ta, right? Then we put that aside and say, oh, let's look at this one. I broke all the tees into their own single flag tees.
Yeah.
And quickly they're able to, we read that and they go, that's really hard to follow. I'm like, exactly. And musicians said, if we're going to notate music this way and notate rhythms, why don't we make it as easy as we can? Similar to why we have bar lines,
Hmm.
you know, like pauses, um, uh, periods in a sentence or commas in a sentence. We can beam these two eighth notes together and read them. It's a lot easier to do than reading single T's. And you might see a T all by themselves in a rhythm without their friend hanging around, right? So this is a precursor to T ta T. And so many of the songs that you mentioned, um, I do as well. I love an Alabama Gal. It's a big
Yeah.
favorite, of course, in fourth grade. Love the game. Well, I call it a game, but it's a dance, right? We love to do it with New England Dance Masters. And I strongly advise that you break them into two long way sets if
Yes.
you're doing it with recorded music. Otherwise, it just does not go well because it's not enough time for
They
you to
can't get through.
peel the banana and get through. And so also I've noticed that as the momentum of this goes along, we gotta watch ourselves because depending on your class, things can get dangerous.
They
So
do.
you gotta
Yeah.
keep that in check. In this dance and song in particular, towards the end of the song, they're just kind of whipped up into a frenzy.
Yeah.
If I'm not like really like cautious about let's take a breather and let's be careful and all that stuff. Yeah, so love Alabama Gal, love Under the Spreading Chestnut Tree. I've not used Big Fat Biscuit but I've thought about it. um I just have other things that I like a lot.
Right.
We know there's been lots of literature, lots of song literature that was previously used for ta tea, that is problematic. And a lot of not a lot, I can think of four songs that I have maybe previously unfortunately used for the syncopated rhythm that I'm not using anymore.
Hmm.
So, um, Karen Howard had mentioned not Land of the Silver Birch, but also the paddle song,
Hmm.
and that's one I'm not using anymore.
Yep.
But there's others. What I am excited about this year using that I've not used before is My Mom Is Calling Me. And oh boy, Crystal Hendricks, you're getting lots of shout outs lately. But um, I had totally forgotten about this song. You can find it in Susan Brumfield's latest 100 singing games. And
101 sing.
101 singing gigs and songs and all that. And the song goes, My mama's calling me. You can't get out of here. My mama's calling me. You can't get out of here. What shall I do? Pat your ones to your knees. What shall I do? Pat your twos to your knees. Pat your threes to your knees. Pat your all. Now, I have to extract this rhythm. We're not going to look at the song in its entirety with the rhythm, but that's fine because it happens right away with my mama's calling me. And I think I'm swinging it. I'm dotting it a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was wondering
Yeah.
if that dotted rhythm is
No, it's
your
me.
source.
Sorry.
I mean,
Um,
it kind of feels right, but
it
so it's
does.
my mama's calling me. Is it tita?
Exactly.
So you can extract tita, tita,
You
tita.
can.
Great.
Yes. Yes. Um, now I'm thinking, should I look at it? It is right. I know this is right. All right. So that is a awesome song. And Crystal, I have to give props to. She put a different game with it that is really fun. And I'm not even going to describe the game because that's not, that's Crystal's thing that she took an older game from a song that most of us don't do anymore, and she put it with this song, and it's works out well. It's a big
Yeah.
hit. So I'm going to be using that. I already used it with my fifth grade to review, and I'm going to be using it with the fourth graders.
Oh
So
yeah, thanks for that reminder. That's going to be a practice song for me.
yeah, it worked really well as a fun practice song.
Yeah.
Other songs that I will be doing, oboe, she otten totten, hey hey, I am boom boom boom, eeny meeny otten totten, oboe, she otten totten, oboe, she otten totten, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is your hand clapping game where you have uh, your right hand on top of your neighbor's left hand. Um, yeah, that's the way it goes. And if you have done um, any of these hand clapping games where you're going around the circle and the idea is to keep the beat, and at the end, when we say boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, do we go to five? Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 could be.
I don't
Eh,
remember because I do a quackwa with my kids, which goes to five. So
right,
I've
exactly.
not done
So
this one before because it was too much confusion. So I don't know what
yes,
the
a
numbers
qua
are.
qua is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, in oboe, shiat, and tatten, I think we do go to five.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. You can look it up and find it. It's African American street game, and that's a fun thing to do. And boy, there's so many things that you can add on with oboe, shiat, and tatten with capitalizing on that oboe, shiat, and tatten rhythm and having kids play that as an ostinato. It works really well. So love that one. Bump Up Tomato is another favorite African American um, hand jive game, and they make fists, and it's right hand over your partner's left hand again, but you're just bonking your fists for bump up tomato, I like the weather, bring back my heart to me, excuse me, and every minute my heart goes crisscross tomato sauce, crisscross my heart is lost, bump up tomato, freeze, and at the end everybody freezes, but the person in the middle, you put someone in the middle who has to go up to one student and try to make them laugh. There's variations on this game. The making them laugh thing has been always pretty successful. Um, and also, you get some nice quiet in the room for a second.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will be doing that. Um, Black Snake is another favorite, and we use this as a hiding game. Um, and Black Snake. I don't remember the origins of Black Snake, but it goes, Black Snake, where are you hiding? Black Snake, where are you hiding? Black Snake, where are you hiding? Don't you bite me. And in this game, we play it. It's the opposite of Lucy Locket. So now that we're in fourth grade, I have a little black plastic snake, and we have someone who's going to be the searcher for the snake. Um, and someone hides the black snake somewhere in the room with just a little bit of the black snake tail peeking out. And then when that searcher comes back, we keep singing the song over and over again. And when the seeker is close to the black snake, we sing quiet.
That's so funny. I do the same game and I've never done it backwards like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and then when they're far away, we sing louder.
that makes more sense because you wouldn't want the snake to jump out and bite you.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, wow. I have never done it that way. I don't know. What a silly little thing, but that's cute. And
Well,
it's different than all the other games we've played where we hide and find stuff because we have a lot of those.
we have a lot of those. Yeah. So this is kind of nice because the kids will go, "Oh, Lucy Locket." I'm like, "Yes, but in reverse."
Yeah.
So there you
Can
go.
I ask a question? Because I've used Black Snake before for Tea, but they have a hard time because of that slurred rhythm or that, where are you hiding?
Hi. Yeah.
Because they want to make it ta, ta. Where are you hiding?
Right.
So I
And
have
that's
to remind
why
them.
I like this game, because we don't have a lot of repertoire that has the ti ti ta,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm
Because
saying they don't always hear it that way because of the syllables. You know what I mean?
right.
So
Hiding.
yeah, I have to
But
often like take the time to point out how many sounds you hear on hiding. There's actually three different sounds.
right.
And they're because they're fourth graders, they can handle it. But I just bring that up because sometimes my kids struggle with identifying the T rhythm in there. But I still love that song in games, so I use it for sure. But
Yeah.
it can be
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah. We point that out
Yeah,
later on, um, when we are reading short, long, short, t talk.
exactly. Yeah.
I have a lot of materials that I've created where I have looks like Morse code, where you've got a little short dash, a long line, and a little short dash, that I use that all over the place. We play poison pattern that way, which I have not done this, but why haven't I done this? Well, no, I have done this orally, but not written wise. It
Mm.
would be really easy to go from black snake, and we're talking about not getting bitten by the black snake. And here's our poison pattern.
Oh
Is
yeah.
that t short, long, short, ta is the
Hmm.
poison pattern, rather than your short, long, short, ta, or your short, long, short, ta rest.
Yeah.
Um, you could be very thematic about this whole
Totally.
totally thing. Yeah. So yeah, I will be when I focus on this rhythm. I won't say melody practice goes away, but it's very light,
Yeah. This becomes the
because
thick of the, yeah, for sure.
like we mentioned before, this and I'm interested to see how it goes this year, because I've been moving and grooving pretty much with 2 lessons of prep and then present, and I don't know if that's going to work for this rhythm. I think we're probably going to go 3 lessons, and then, or maybe even 4, because I hate presenting on the last day that I see them and then they go away for 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
didn't
see.
love the timing of presenting this pretty much right before Thanksgiving break and not getting a lot of practice time, which is why I was like, oh, I want to be really intentional with what my practice activities are to really see those little formative assessment moments. Are they getting it, or do I have to kind of almost sometimes you have to re-present something, and that's okay too. Like you play it dumb and like you put up like the old version of whatever you did in prep, and they're like, wait a minute, isn't that Tita? Oh, yeah, that's right. So that's like my way of like re-presenting something is, throwing up the old iconic version and then seeing if they remember what it is. Sometimes
Yeah.
after a long break, you got to do that.
And for some concepts, spending too long in prep really backfires. Like half a note, if I spend too long with two tied taws, they just never want to get out of that, and
Yeah.
they keep calling it long. Even they go, no, remember when we said it was much tidier to write it this way,
Mm-hmm.
and it's two now because it's two beats. And for some kids, boy, they get into even the next grade and they're still saying long when
Mm-hmm.
they see that half note. So yeah, it really is very much dependent on the concept. And
Yeah.
yeah, so exactly. The timing might not work out awesome, and that's just the way it is. I don't think I'm going to be presenting Teep Ta Tea until January because I have like one and a half rotations.
Yeah, that's the other thing is really being, intentional as we move into this time between Thanksgiving and Christmas of what you present. I really try to write my yearly plan so I'm not presenting anything heavy at this time. It's a lot of practice of stuff we already know and then prepping things we'll do after the break. Sometimes I'll throw in something really simple that I know they can handle. Actually, I will be presenting two to my second graders because we've been tying, and I'm like, well, yeah, they can totally handle that. That's a simple little swap. But yeah, I agree. You have to be really thoughtful. It's just not worth it to present anything. You might feel like, oh, I'm ready. I'm jumping at the bit. I don't want to wait till January, but you're just gonna have to redo it anyway. So sometimes it's better just to give them some really good prep and then insert some fun, holiday winter thematic things into your lessons, and then really do the more heavy presenting when we get back from the break. So very smart, Tanya.
We'll see how that goes.
It is always important to be reflective in everything we do. So, this is the segment we call Know Better, Do Better, where we reflect on our classroom repertoire and practices and think about ways we can do better for our kids. So, Tanya, what would you like to share today?
This is an idea I know that we've spoken about, but just something that I've been thinking about. Well, I have to, we've been talking a lot about Cuthbertson's book, Music as a Vehicle, and it's an excellent resource. And I have not read it all the way through, but I was struck by something as I was scanning chapters and things. And it also reminded me of something that Rachel Gibson had been talking about is Dr. Rachel Gibson talks about culture first, music second. And then in Ashley's book, I'm looking at the chapter about find the story in the repertoire. And Ashley says teaching music isn't really about teaching music. And so I wholeheartedly agree. And as Kodai inspired educators, this can be something that is taking a while for us to really mull over. Also, I'm thinking about in recent conversations in Oak, we've had some online forums among teachers who teach teachers, and Joan Littman, who's fantastic, also has talked about this idea of like, we're doing things backwards. We as Kodály educators, we're always looking for the song, the repertoire to fit the concept, and so much of the time we're trying to shove this these musics and not do songs. We're avoiding songs if they don't fit a specific pedagogical concept, and that we really need to be paying attention about of why do we have music, why does music bring us together, and we need to be thinking about the cultural significance and the stories, which is really uh, so much of a unifying thing among the world, is the stories behind the music. And